Hi, in my previous video on the Parkside or LIDL stone, I got a lot of comments, a lot of negative comments about how I sharpen, basically saying that I'm doing it wrong. Now, I'm not an expert, but I'm still learning, but there are quite a few things that I have learned, and I'm always willing to try new stuff. So for this, I'm going to try both pulling and pushing the blade. So just to see if it makes a difference. So watch this, see how it works, and stay till the end for the outcome and what I think about the best way to do this. So I'll be defining what I mean by push and pull sharpening. I'll go through some of the safety considerations and about using the stone. I'll talk a little bit about my test knife that I use. Then I'll go through a demo of pushing sharpening and pulling sharpening, and we'll review the outcome. So just talking about the stone first of all. So this is a Parkside stone and it came from LIDL in the UK and it's a water stone. So I've been soaking it for about 10 or 15 minutes. Now, one of the things about this is that I think the general consensus is that the grit markings are wrong. We're guessing that this is probably more like a 600, the green one with the white one being 1000. I'm not sure for definite, but it's definitely round the wrong way as far as the green one is the more coarse stone. So I haven't contacted either Parkside or LIDL yet, but I intend to at some point. But that was a consensus from the comments that people have left against the video. So this is the stone. The other thing is I had a lot of comments saying, why is it so wet? Why am I using water on it? Well, it's a water stone. So I didn't realize until I sort of had this that there are water stones and oil stones. And the water stones work best if they're soaked in water and you use them wet. The oil stones, you keep them dry, but you do use oil as a lubricant. The mold problem that I had, you can still see the remnants here. That's pretty much gone away. I used a concentrated disinfectant and then I've dried it out thoroughly. If I do get the mold back, then I think I might just scorch it with a butane lighter and see if that gets rid of it. But so far, the concentrated disinfectant seems to have worked. So this is the stone. And one of the key things about this is to make sure that they're nice and wet. Now, despite having soaked this for a while, you can see it's still absorbing the water. So you know you've got it right when the water stops being absorbed. So I think that's about it. What do I mean by push and pull sharpening? So it's all about which part of the blade is leading when you sharpen. So it's not about the direction, whether it's coming to or away from me. So what I mean by push sharpening, and apologies if I confuse people, but I was just trying to explain, this is with the blade of the knife leading across the stone. So you're pushing the edge of the knife first. So that's what I'm calling push sharpening. Even if it's coming towards me, the blade, the edge of the blade that I'm sharpening, that's coming across the stone first. Then pull sharpening is where I'm pulling it backwards, so the spine of the blade is leading, and so it's dragging across the stone rather than pushing across it. So this would be pulling with the spine going first, and this is pushing with the edge going first. So hopefully I've explained that. One of the other comments I had was about safety. So I don't use gloves. You can get Kevlar gloves or leather gloves, but I find that as long as I'm focusing on what I'm doing, I'm focusing on the sharpening without distractions, that I'm looking at the stone directly, not through the camera, then I think I get a better feel for the sharpening. And obviously, the knife gets sharper the more you sharpen. So I am very careful. I have had the occasional nick on my fingers from handling knives, but I'm very careful around the sharp edge. So next, just a little talk about why I use this knife. So This was a knife I actually got free. I think it was with a chopping board. It is a Solingen knife and it's stainless, but why I use this a lot is that I just don't want to mess up one of my other knives. So I use this a lot for practicing because it's talking about angles and getting that right. It's about practicing that sort of mechanical movement across the stone to make sure that I'm getting the angle right and I'm doing it in the right way. I'm still learning on this, so I might not get it perfectly right. So, feel free. If you've got some positive comments, how I can do it better, please let me know. I'm really keen to hear about it. So yeah, so this is my test knife, practice knife, whatever you want to call it. And then between sharpenings, I blunt it on this Lansky puck. And I use paper, and just for some standardization, I use a post-it note, and I blunted it to the point that I can't cut through it. Hopefully I've set this up well. So if you hang around and I'll go through and I'll talk through how I'm finding it, what are some of the benefits of each one. So my traditional sharpening method that I've learned from watching videos and just by what feels comfortable to me is the push method. So let's just give this a go, shall we? I'm pushing the knife across the stone and I'm trying to keep the angle as consistent as I can. So to do this, I'm trying to keep my wrist locked and I'm moving my arm. I haven't got an angle guide for this, so I'm doing it by eye. The angle guide that came with this, I didn't find much use, and I actually found it more distracting. So ideally, in doing this, I'm trying to get a bevel, and I've not found it very easy to find the bevel. As I say, I'm still practicing. So I've done a few passes there. There might be a slight edge there. So now there are two options here. One is to turn the knife over and to do it this way. So I'm still pushing, and in fact I'll try that. I found this a little bit more difficult because I'm right-handed and it just doesn't seem to go right. I'm trying to make sure that I cover all of the blade. Water on. So one of the things with the water stone is that it actually uses the water as a lubricant, and also the small particles of stone that come off then become a slurry, which also help to sharpen the stone. So I've given it a few goes there, and let's just give it a quick test. So I think this is better. I might have got the paper damp. Right, I'm going to give it a few more goes actually. So continuing to push. Now, the other complaint I had was about music, so I won't be putting any music on here. So for those of you that don't like the sound of the stone, I'm sorry, please turn the sound down. And then I'll turn it over. Now I'm trying to keep it with the same direction as the blade. I'm keeping my fingers away from the edge. Just going to move this back a bit. I'm keeping my fingers away from the edge so there's no risk of me being cut. And to be honest, I don't think it matters whether this is coming towards you or away. I think as long as you're careful with it. Let's give that another try now. Yeah, it's just catching a little bit at the edge. Let's just do a couple more. And of course, if you're finding this boring, then just fast forward. But I wanted to be honest, so you can see exactly how many strokes I'm taking. And to be fair, blunting it on the puck does mean that it was really blunt to start with. So I just stopped them briefly just because my computer's making noises and I didn't want it to get in the way of this. So let's give that another try. Yeah, I think that's pretty good for the green. Let me just turn it over and we'll carry on with the white. I think that the green is probably more like 600 and the white is 1000. The white is definitely the smoother of the two, in my opinion, and of several people that have commented. Get this on. It's nicely seated. Okay. So continuing with the pushing now. And I'm doing this a little bit quicker because this is much smoother. And the smoother the stone, I think often the longer you've got to do it. So let's just get that in. I'll turn it over and I'll try pushing it this way. Now, one of the problems with this pushing method, one of the cons, I would say, is that there is a potential that it could dig into the stone. And certainly never strop this way, because then there's a strong chance you're going to cut up the strop. But otherwise, it seems to make sense to me to do it this way, because this is the way you're going to be using the blade when you cut. Okay, let's give this a try. Yeah, I think that's pretty sharp. So that was the push method. So as I said, I think some of the pros is that this is the same way that you're going to use the knife. And generally, if you've got a stone with angle guides, which I've got some other ones I'm going to do a video on that come with an angle guide, then that's the way it's sort of facing the right way. The cons, you could dig into the stone. So I think you need to be careful and not apply too much pressure when you're doing this. Right, let's move on to the pull method. Before I start, I'm just going to blunten the knife again, and yeah, so it's not cutting at all. For the pull method, so this time I'm going to be pulling it. I'll actually pull it towards me just because it's easier, and I'll swap over the same way. So this time I'm pulling the blade towards me. It actually sounds noisier, I think. Let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, as always, please let me know which method you use and why you use it like that. Is there a particular reason? Is it just how you were taught, or do you see some real benefits from that? So I'm trying to keep consistent so that the scratch patterns on the edge of the blade are consistent. I'm trying to keep it nice and steady and nice and flat to the stone, so I don't dig it out at all. Yeah, I can't really feel a bevel this way. Okay, let's try turning it over, doing a few on this side. I mean, it feels fairly natural. It doesn't feel unnatural to do it this way. The benefit of this stone is it's long enough that for this side blade I get a decent pull on it, and it doesn't need too much. Let me just give it a few goes on either side just to clear that bevel. Give it a quick dry. Now, that doesn't seem to have worked as well at all, actually. Right, let me keep going. Now, I'm giving it the same pressure and the same angle. And I'm sure I'm giving it the same number of goes. And I promise you there's no trickery in this, so I'm just what you see is what I'm doing. So I've got no, sorry to use the phrase, I've got no axe to grind or knife to sharpen, whichever way it goes. I'm just trying it out based on people's comments and seeing which one I find easier to use and which one works most effectively for me. And I can only ever talk about how I think it works for me. You have to make your own call. I think that's a bit better. Right, let me just do a few more passes. I'm just going to focus on the near the tip a bit as well. So here I'm just using my fingers here with a little bit of light pressure just to keep all of the knife in contact with the stone as I go. And just make sure I get the tip. So with a fresh piece of paper, it might be operator error with the cutting, but I think that's pretty sharp. So again, we're going to switch it over. We'll just give it a few goes with the white and discuss as we go. So keeping it nice and wet, and again pulling it from the top back towards me. So hopefully this looks reasonably safe to do. And I think the big benefit here is it's much less likely to dig into the stone coming this way, similar to stropping. and then against the other one, it's a little bit harder if you've got the guides that are at either end of the stone, or with some of the small sharpeners, then they may not work. It may be harder to guess the angle. Switch over. Put some more water on. Now, this is one of the problems I've found with water stones, actually. They are a bit of a faff to use. So I think often they're cheaper. Often they have finer grit, but they are a bit of a faff to use. I haven't got an oil stone, but I am tempted to invest in some diamond stones, actually. Okay, let's give that a try. So I think the overall effect is as good, actually. I think it might have been a little bit slower getting there. So I think it seems to be just as sharp either way. So what do I think the outcome of this is? I think it doesn't make any difference. And I guess in theory, what you could do a push and a pull method. I don't know whether that would disrupt the burr on the edge of the blade. So I think I'm going to carry on pushing because I'm a bit more comfortable doing that. I might try push and pulling later on. If you want a good sharpening channel to check out, why not check out Outdoors 55? I've learned a lot from his videos, and he's got a great video on this as well. Hope you found this interesting. If you've got one of these stones, please let me know how you're getting on. Let me know if you've solved the mold problem. Why not check out this video down here or this playlist for more sharpening videos. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.